In honor of the World Series this week, this episode compares the business of pharmacy to the baseball themed book and movie Moneyball. The full title of the book is Moneyball: The Art of Winning an Unfair Game by Michael Lewis. The story is about how the Oakland A's baseball team used data and statistics to build a winning team, even on a tight budget. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, where we talk about pharmacy topics and careers so you feel connected to the profession of pharmacy and inspired to contribute to it. I am your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. This is episode 354, and you can find the show notes at thepharmacistsvoice.com. Throughout this episode, I will be making several references to Moneyball. Now, if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, don't worry, you'll still be able to follow along. But if you would like to get the full effect, watch the movie and then listen again. In this episode, I want to start a conversation. I really mean it. I want to start a conversation about how the story of Moneyball connects to pharmacy. And also, I want to start the conversation about what we can learn from its data-driven approach to winning. Let's really start a conversation. I am looking for 10 pharmacists, to record up to 5 minutes of input about how any pharmacy setting, including independent retail, chain retail, hospital, oncology, anything, can thrive by leveraging pharmacist skills, serving changing patient needs, and optimizing limited resources. If you would like to be part of my second episode about Moneyball for Pharmacists, I'm calling it Moneyball for Pharmacists 2.0, use the contact form on my website, which is thepharmacistsvoice.com, to schedule your 5-minute interview. Just reach out and I will send you a scheduling link. Once I have 10 responses, I will publish Moneyball for Pharmacists 2.0. That will come out before my show changes format in January 2026. I am going from a weekly show down to a monthly show, starting after my 6-year podcast anniversary in January 2026. I think it's January 23rd, 2026. So get your responses in. Let me know if you're interested. Let's book your interview. Let's get 10 people to give their input for Moneyball for Pharmacists 2.0. Now, let's look at the parallels between Moneyball and pharmacy. We will talk about the following topics: competing with limited resources, the data, the playas, the strategy, the Moneyball mindset, and my call to action. Let's start with competing with limited resources. In Moneyball, the Oakland A's didn't have the biggest budget, the flashiest stadium, or the most famous players. They had to make every dollar and every player count. While the other teams could spend their way to success, the A's had to think their way there. I love strategy. It's just part of who I am. So this movie really appealed to me. But anyways, the comparison is that pharmacies face the same challenge. Whether you're running an independent pharmacy or working at a busy retail chain, the margins are tight, staff is limited, and expectations keep growing. You can't just throw more money or more people at the problem. You have to find smarter ways to win. That's what this whole Moneyball for Pharmacists idea is all about: using creativity, data, teamwork, and strategy to serve patients profitably and sustainably, not just spending more, but thinking differently. As the story goes in the movie, the Oakland A's couldn't win by spending more, so they had to think differently, and pharmacists need to do the same. The A's proved that limited resources didn't have to mean limited results. They just needed a smarter way to win. And that brings us to the next part of the story, the data. What really wins games, and what really wins in pharmacy? In Moneyball, the turning point came when the A's stopped chasing star power and started following the numbers. They discovered a simple truth: getting on base wins games. It didn't matter if it was a walk, a bunt, or a clean single right up the middle. As long as players got on base, the team had a chance to score. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. Pharmacy has its own version of that story. For decades, we've been swinging for the fences, chasing the big numbers, high prescription volume, new services, fast turnaround times, and impressive metrics that look great on a corporate dashboard. But do those numbers really help us win? If we take a closer look at the data, the pharmacy equivalent of on base percentage isn't how many prescriptions we fill. It's how well we keep patients healthy, adherent, and loyal. If you're listening to this thinking, oh no, I've got a few more to add to that, well, listen, contact me. Get on this podcast for Moneyball for Pharmacists 2.0. The real wins are the everyday plays that don't always show up on reports. Making sure a patient understands how to take their medication. Calling a doctor to fix a dosing error before it causes harm. Finding a lower cost option so someone doesn't skip a refill or stop taking their meds altogether. Or checking in on a patient who just started insulin. Those are our base hits. They don't make headlines, but they move patients forward, one safe, steady step at a time. Just like the A's built their success by stacking base hits, pharmacists can do the same. One meaningful patient interaction at a time. If you have something to add to this conversation about data, or if you've seen base hits make a difference in your own practice, I want to hear from you. Let's keep the conversation going. Next up, let's talk about the players, using everybody's strengths. In Moneyball, the Oakland A's didn't build a team of superstars. They couldn't afford to do that. They built a team of specialists, players who each did one thing really well. When their strengths were combined, the team won, even without a big payroll. Pharmacy works the same way. No single pharmacist can do everything. Yet in many pharmacies, especially in the busy retail ones, the chain ones, that's exactly what's expected. The pharmacist is supposed to answer the phones, enter and verify prescriptions, counsel the patients, give vaccines, solve billing problems, and still find time for clinical services like MTM, even when the tech calls off. It's like asking one baseball player to pitch, catch, and hit all at the same time. What if we built our pharmacy teams like the Oakland A's built theirs, around strengths? The pharmacist who loves patient counseling could focus on education and MTM. The one who's great with data could manage quality metrics or adherence reports. The technician who's efficient and accurate could own the dispensing workflow. The manager could be the coach, right? Baseball analogy here. Setting the strategies, supporting the team, and keeping morale high. And part-time specialists could fill in the gaps, like bringing in a smoking cessation expert or being the smoking cessation expert once or twice a month to run a clinic while the core team handles dispensing. Maybe we can fill gaps with lots of different part-time specialists. Maybe part-time specialists could go around to all of the pharmacies in the area and just specialize in one thing and do that one thing at all the local pharmacies. When everyone plays to their strengths, the whole pharmacy wins, and the patients too. There's safer dispensing, happier patients, and a less burned out team. In Moneyball, the A's stopped chasing the image of a perfect player, and they started using data to build a perfect team. In pharmacy, we can stop chasing the myth of the superhuman pharmacist and start building smarter, balanced teams where everyone contributes to the win. If you have something to add to this part of the conversation, I want to hear from you. And I'm looking for solutions, not naysayers, so come prepared. Let's move on to the strategy, building a team around patient needs. In Moneyball, the A's didn't just build a team of good players, they built a team that met the needs of the game. What do you mean, Kim? Every decision came back to the question, What helps us score? Pharmacy can ask the same question. What helps our patients win? So again, in Moneyball, the A's didn't just build a team of good players, they built a team that met the needs of the game. They studied where runs were lost, where could they gain small advantages, and how could they turn those little improvements into wins. So every decision came back to that one question: what helps us score? Again, pharmacy can ask that same question, but of course, patient focused. What helps our patients win? When a patient walks into the pharmacy, what are they thinking about? Are they thinking about your metrics and your prescription volume? How many flu shots you need to sell today? No, they're not thinking about corporate metrics. They're thinking about whatever brought them into the store: their blood pressure or their blood pressure medication, their diabetes medication, their pain pills, their insurance, and how they're going to pay for their medication. And also, how much time they have before they have to get to the next thing they're doing. Maybe they're on their way to pick up food and it's getting cold. You don't know what your patient is thinking. So just remember, when a patient walks into your pharmacy, they're not thinking about your corporate metrics or your prescription volume. Their needs are personal and they change constantly. Big chain pharmacies struggle to respond because they're like massive baseball franchises. Lots of players, but very little flexibility. Independent and specialty pharmacies, however, can pivot quickly. They can add a new service, rearrange workflow, or partner with a local clinic almost overnight. That agility is the strategy. Instead of chasing the same plays that everyone else runs, more scripts, more shots, more metrics, Agile pharmacies develop their lineup around what patients actually want and need. Home delivery for patients with mobility issues or vision problems, medication synchronization to simplify refills, health coaching and education for chronic conditions, compounding for personalized care, and vaccinations and long acting injections for convenience. Each of these is a base hit. They may not make headlines, but they keep patients healthy, loyal, and coming back. One of the things that I love and that keeps me coming back to the local independent pharmacy that I use is that they give my son who has autism his vaccinations successfully. I care about stuff like that. Now, just like the A's studied their data to find what worked, pharmacists can study patient feedback, what the community needs, even if it's like a mom that has a child with autism that needs a shot. And they can also study local health trends to guide their strategy. What's going on in Ohio here, where I am, may not be what's going on in Indiana next door. When the game changes, and it always does, the pharmacies that adapt fastest are the ones that keep winning. If you have something to add to this part of the conversation, I want to hear from you. My audience wants to hear from you too. Maybe you can help other people listening to this see what your patients see. It's not about what we as pharmacists want to offer. It's about meeting patients where they're at and filling their gaps, even if it looks different from year to year. So let's keep this part of the conversation going. I want to hear from you. And next, let's move on to the Moneyball mindset. Let's talk about mindset and let's talk about measuring what matters. In Moneyball, the biggest change wasn't the players or even the strategy, it was the mindset. Mindset's so important. For decades, scouts, baseball scouts, judged players by how they looked or their size, their speed, or their swing. But Billy Beane in the movie and his team asked a different question. Does this player help us win games? That was an important question. They stopped measuring what was easy to see and started measuring what actually mattered: getting on base and scoring runs. Pharmacy can do the same thing. For too long, we have measured success by the wrong stats: prescription volume, wait times, how many flu shots did we give last month? Those numbers might please corporate offices, but they don't tell the real story. Whether we're helping patients live healthier lives and delivering the experience they need. What if we started tracking different metrics? Moneyball metrics for pharmacy. How about medication adherence and persistence? Are they taking it daily? And for how long have they been taking it daily? How about patient satisfaction and trust? How do we even measure that? Let's find a way. Successful interventions that prevent hospitalizations. Positive outcomes from coaching, counseling, or follow up. Staff well being and turnover rates. Who tracks that? I have never heard of anybody tracking that. That should happen, though, because healthy teams provide better care. And meeting patient needs through a customer experience that keeps them coming back. Moneyball metrics for pharmacy, the ones that I'm proposing, are numbers that really matter. They are the pharmacy version of on base percentage. When we start measuring what matters, we start valuing what matters. It changes what we pay attention to, how we spend our time, how we build our teams, and how we design our workflows. In baseball, this new Moneyball mindset reshaped an entire sport. In pharmacy, it could reshape our profession. We don't need to wait for permission from the big chains, the PBMs, or the corporate offices. We can start keeping score differently right now. If you're in retail pharmacy, this probably resonates, but I would love to hear from you no matter which setting you are practicing in. Consider reaching out to be part of Moneyball for Pharmacists 2.0. Again, go to thepharmacistvoice.com, hit the contact tab, leave me a message. We'll schedule your interview. We're getting close to the end. Now let's talk about my call to action and a new era of pharmacy. In Moneyball, the Oakland A's proved that success doesn't belong only to the biggest teams with the biggest budgets. It belongs to those who think differently. Those who think differently measure what matters and make the most of every opportunity on the field. Pharmacy is ready for that same transformation. We don't need to wait for someone else to rewrite the rules. We can start rewriting them ourselves. Independent and community pharmacies, specialty pharmacies, hospital systems, and every pharmacist in between can bring Moneyball thinking to their practice. That means focusing on what really wins. Patient relationships that build trust, data that guides better decisions, teams that play to their strengths, and workflows that adapt to what patients truly want and need. Every small win counts. Each refill delivered on time, each conversation that prevents a medication error, each patient who finally understands their therapy. Those are the base hits that add up to a winning season. The Oakland A's changed baseball by proving that numbers could tell a new story. Pharmacists can change healthcare by proving that compassion, intelligence, and adaptability are what truly drive outcomes. It's time for a Moneyball mindset in pharmacy, one where we stop chasing volume and start building value, one where we redefine what a win looks like for patients, pharmacists, and the profession itself. So here's the question. What's your version of a base hit? That's where the new era of pharmacy begins. I want to leave you with a final invitation. Remember, I want to hear from 10 people. I would like to record 10 5-minute conversations. You can talk about a lot of different things, but I'll give you a few to chew on here. Your version of a base hit in your own area of pharmacy, whether it's retail, hospital, compounding, oncology, or what have you. You could talk about how we can use data to measure what truly matters for patients. You can talk about what a winning pharmacy team lineup looks like. I mentioned having a part-timer come in to do a smoking cessation program. You can talk about how independent pharmacies can use agility as a competitive edge. Maybe you're already doing that. Tell me what you're doing. You could talk about how we should redefine the pharmacist success metrics. Or you can pick something else out of the episode that you want to talk about. I know I threw out a lot of ideas throughout the episode. The bottom line is, I'd like to hear from you. So please reach out, go to thepharmacistvoice.com, hit the contact tab, leave me a message. I'd like to hear from you. Thank you for listening to episode 354 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. The show notes, of course, are on thepharmacistvoice.com. You can find those under the podcast tab, find episode 354. In the show notes, you will find links to Moneyball, the book, my social media links, and more. If you know someone who would like to hear this episode or contribute to Moneyball for Pharmacists 2.0, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, come on back, subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. We've got a lot more weekly episodes coming up here in 2025. The show doesn't go monthly until February 2026. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll talk to you next week.